All right, Gabo and Get Some's matchup. This was a close race for matchup of the week. It definitely could have been. I think it features two of the strongest rosters in the league. Right now, ESPN has Gabo projected at 141 points, which is 35 points over Get Some. For you retards, that's a 35-point favored prediction. But that's by ESPN. That's not by me, and we all know that I know more than ESPN. I'm going to start off right away with the quarterbacks. We have Drew Brees against Jay Cutler. Now, everybody's going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but in week one, only in week one, I'm thinking Cutler and Brees are going to be very even. I know, it's a little bit crazy, but I think they're going to be very even. I think they're both going to be putting up plus 20 points. Brees against Minnesota and Cutler against Detroit. Detroit can't stop the pass. They can't rush the passer, and if you give Cutler time, he's going to find those receivers, even though they're not that good. Watch Cutler get 20 points this week. Watch it. It will happen. In the middle of the lineup, this is where Gabo definitely has the advantage. Chris Johnson, Maurice Jones-Drew, Arian Foster. Chris Johnson projected by a lot of people having a plus 20 game over Oakland. Oakland's a lot stronger team this year, and every team is going to be focusing on Chris Johnson making Vince Young beat him. I definitely see points for Chris Johnson. It would be foolish for me not to think over double digits. I don't see over 20. I'm thinking more around 15 points for Chris Johnson this week. Maurice Jones-Drew against Denver. Denver every year for the last 3 years has come out of the gate on defensively strong. I see the same thing happening. Maurice Jones-Drew is going to get his points, is going to get his touches. I see him getting around the same thing as Chris Johnson, about 14, 15 points. And Arian Foster, we're going to see how he does. He had a marvelous preseason. He moved up the ranks in the board. You can see that with Gobo taking him in the 5th round. We're going to see how he does in the regular season here. Against an Indianapolis defense, you would think a lot of points for Foster. I think he's going to have his points in the first half. I'm thinking around 6, 7 points in the first half alone. If he doesn't get that, we're going to be in a lot of trouble, because against Indianapolis, I see the Texans being behind, or at least in a shootout, and that means a lot less running. So I'm thinking around 9, 8, maybe 10 points for Foster. If he sees the end zone, I can see 13, but I'm thinking definitely more in the single digit range for Foster in week 1. Get Some in the middle. He's got Benson, he's got D'Angelo Williams, he's got Jamal Charles. This week I absolutely love Jamal Charles. He's going against the San Diego defense that is not very strong against the run, and Jamal Charles is definitely looking to prove himself that at the end of last year was not a fluke. I'm going to see him really emerge and become one of the top 10 backs in the NFL. I'm definitely seeing around 16, 17 points out of Jamal Charles in week 1. D'Angelo Williams, he's the biggest flux for Get Some this week. And he's going to be the biggest flux for Get Some almost any week. He can score 6 points. He can score 16 points. It just depends on who gets the goal line carries between him and Jonathan Stewart. But I do see him around that 10 range. Cedric Benson against New England, absolutely love him this week. I'm thinking around 14, 15 points for Cedric. I see him finding the end zone once and getting about 70, 80 yards on the ground. The receiver slot, this is where we flip. Get Some definitely has the advantage. He has 2 solid receivers. He has Andre Johnson, who is the beast. He's going to get about 18 points against Indy this year. Sorry, not this year, this week. I see 18 points. Could be slightly less, but I definitely see him having over a plus 100-yard game and finding the end zone at least once. Donald Driver, I love everybody on Green Bay. This is the one spot, though, I could see benching Driver and putting in Pierre Garçon against the Houston defense. In the preseason and last season, we saw that Manning was going to Pierre Garçon a lot more. I can see keeping him on the bench this week, just because we don't know how it's going to translate into the regular season this year. But on the other hand, I definitely can see him starting over Driver this week. I think it's going to be a crapshoot. They're going to be very similar in points, but I definitely think Garcon is going to maybe have 2 or 3 points more than Down Driver this week. But I still, like I said, I don't see it bad to keep Driver in because, like I said 100 times, I love everybody on the Packers offense. On the flip side, I have Gobo with his starting receivers, Roddy White and Jabbar Gaffney. Jabbar Gaffney is still in your starting roster. This is a problem. Gaffney, I don't see anything over 5 points at all. If he gets 5 points, I'll be very surprised. I would definitely probably sit him and put Mike Wallace in there out of Pittsburgh. I know Roethlisberger is not starting, so you're thinking you're not going to start a Pittsburgh receiver. But during the preseason, Dixon and Wallace had a lot of chemistry. I see points out of them. I'm seeing actually 8 to 9 points out of Wallace, which is probably going to be around double of what Jabbar Gaffney does this week. Roddy White against the Pittsburgh defense, I see only 8 points, 7 points out of them. Pittsburgh's going to be running the ball a lot. It's going to be a lot of ground control, a lot of time control offense. So it's going to limit the opportunities for Roddy to get out there. And defense for Pittsburgh is definitely no slouch. So I definitely don't see a lot of points out of Roddy White this week. The defense, I don't understand Gobo here. He's starting the Eagle defense against the best or one of the best offenses in the league, the Packers. I see maybe 2, and I can actually definitely see negative points coming out of the Philly defense this week. On the flip side, Gitsum actually has the Packers defense against Philly, and I don't see a lot of points out of that either. I can see a few turnovers, which might help. I'm thinking around 4 points for the Packers defense, so it's not going to be a huge thing, but I definitely think the Eagles defense out of Gobo, he needs to switch and switch fast. Tight ends, Gates and Selleck. Gates could have a big wide. He might be the one who will pick up the slack that having Jabbar Gaffney, and he's going to get about 10 to 12 to 13 points against KC's defense this week. And especially without Vincent Jackson in the lineup, you can see Gates getting looks even more from Phillip Rivers. My prediction, this is this week's upset of the week. A plus 30, more than 30 points difference in projection by ESPN. I say no. I say Gobo wins, and I think Gobo wins quite handily. Not comfortably, but handily. I think he's winning by 8 points. Gitsum by 8 over league favorite, Team Gobo. Thank your lucky stars. Gitsum, I picked you.